The morning I decided to take a walk along Malibu Beach was the morning my entire career changed forever. I was just a junior analyst at Meridian Tech, the kind of employee who arrives early, leaves late, and never gets noticed. My name is Daniel Reeves, and I had no idea that a simple Saturday stroll would pull me into the most dangerous power struggle I'd ever witnessed. I spotted her first from a distance, sitting in a weathered wooden beach chair, no security detail, no assistant hovering nearby, no designer sunglasses hiding her identity. It was Vanessa Cole, our CEO. The woman whose face graced the cover of Forbes 3 years running. The woman the entire company whispered about like she was made of myth and marble. And here she was, barefoot in the sand, a notebook open on her lap, talking with quiet intensity to a man I didn't immediately recognize. I almost walked past. I almost minded my own business like a sensible person. But something made me slow my steps. Maybe it was the way Vanessa's brow was furrowed, not in concentration but in something closer to fear. Maybe it was the way the man beside her was leaning forward, his voice low and sharp like a blade being sharpened. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check messages, and drifted close enough to catch pieces of their conversation through the ocean breeze. The board won't wait past Thursday, they've already signed off on the removal, you have no idea what Harrison has built against you. The man's words hit me like cold water. Harrison. That was the name of Gerald Harrison, our chief operating officer, a silver-haired, smooth-talking board member who had been with Meridian since its founding days. The man every employee feared more than a quarterly review. The man who smiled at you in hallways and then quietly ended careers before lunch. Vanessa's voice was steady, but I could see her knuckles were white around the pen she was holding. He doesn't have enough, she said. He cannot manufacture a scandal out of nothing. The man across from her shook his head slowly. He already has, Vanessa. The fabricated audit reports are ready. 3 board members have been compromised. By Thursday's emergency meeting, they'll vote you out and frame it as a performance failure. She closed her notebook. Stared at the ocean. And in that moment, I saw something I never expected to see on the face of the most powerful woman in Silicon Valley. She looked utterly alone. I stood frozen on that beach, my heart hammering. I was nobody. I had no power, no leverage, no reason to get involved. But I had one thing that Gerald Harrison hadn't accounted for. I had stumbled onto the truth at exactly the right moment. And I had a choice to make. Walk away and watch an innocent woman be destroyed, or step into something far bigger and more dangerous than anything I had ever imagined. I took a breath. I turned around. And I walked toward Vanessa Cole. She looked up at me with the kind of eyes that have learned to trust no one quickly. I introduced myself, Daniel Reeves, junior analyst, 3rd floor, budget forecasting team, and watched her expression shift from guarded to calculating in under 3 seconds. The man beside her stood immediately, hand moving instinctively toward his jacket pocket. Vanessa raised one finger and he stilled. "Talk," she said to me. Just that one word. So I talked. I told her everything I had heard, word for word, the way my memory has always worked, precise and unforgiving. I watched her face cycle through disbelief, recognition, and finally something cold and determined that I can only describe as a woman who has just decided to go to war. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. The waves kept rolling in. A child laughed somewhere down the beach. The world was completely indifferent to the fact that a corporate assassination was being planned in a glass boardroom 40 miles away. "You could be one of his people," she said finally. "Sent here to test me. To get me to react, expose my hand." I nodded. "You're right. You have no reason to trust me." I pulled out my phone and opened my email. But 3 weeks ago, I was CC'd by mistake on an internal thread between Harrison's office and an external consulting firm called Blackridge Partners. I didn't understand it then. I do now. I handed her the phone. I watched her read. Watched the color drain slightly from her face and then flood back with fury. The email chain was dry and corporate on the surface, restructuring language, performance benchmarks, transition timelines. But buried in the thread was a single attachment labeled Meridian Phase Removal, Draft V4. I had opened it out of curiosity weeks ago, saved it because something felt wrong, and then filed it in the back of my mind like an unanswered question. That document outlined, in clinical detail, a manufactured narrative to discredit Vanessa's leadership using falsified data, timed strategically to an emergency board session. The date on the document matched Thursday exactly. Vanessa handed the phone back. Looked at me for a long, searching moment. Then she turned to the man beside her, who I now understood was her personal attorney, and said 4 quiet words. "Get Marcus on the phone." Within 2 hours, we were in a private office in Santa Monica. By evening, we had contacted 3 independent board members who had not been compromised. By Wednesday night, a forensic accounting firm had confirmed the falsified audit reports and traced their origin directly to Blackridge Partners, a firm with a paper trail leading straight back to Gerald Harrison's personal investment portfolio. Thursday's board meeting didn't go the way Harrison planned. Vanessa walked in not as a woman on trial but as a woman holding the verdict. Harrison was removed from the board before noon. By Friday, the story broke publicly. And on Monday morning, when I arrived at the office, there was a single note on my desk in Vanessa's handwriting. It said, "Some people walk past the truth. Thank you for walking toward it." I kept that note. I keep it still. Because power is not always loud. Sometimes it sits on a beach in a black top and white trousers, holding a notebook and fighting to survive. And sometimes, the most important thing you will ever do is simply choose not to look away. That right there is the power of one ordinary person making an extraordinary choice. If this story moved you, inspired you, or had you holding your breath, then you already know this channel is something special. Subscribe right now, share this with someone who needs to hear it today, and come back for our next story. We post every week, and trust us, you do not want to be the last one to know what happens next.